most of my poems kind of stem from like the traditional forms like villanelles, sonnets, haiku. So I'm going to do one that's actually a series of haikus. They all read as independent haikus, but they're all one poem. Harin's kind of heard this one, but you guys
I'm all for hearing it again.
So it's a series of senryu poems, and
what sort of poems?
Senryu. It's like haiku, but it's different. It's got the same haiku structure. And it's called Heartache Hormesis. I knew what it meant at the time when I was reading it, when I wrote it, but I forgot what Hormesis means. But it's something to do with like healing. So this kind of like, I'm just gonna read it. Haiku, written in doses of mitosis, my emancipation. I harbour a lot, feelings of love and whatnot, and more not than what. If it were easy to forget our past, our love's tomb would be in ruins, rotting foundations, our hearts weighed by Anubis. Trade your love for peace. I want sleep for me. Eluded epiphanies are a great tragedy. Smile to gain a day, cry to earn a peace. My face writes checks it can't meet. Necessary to cut away toxic parts to lighten darkened paths. You revel in my unraveling, melody of woes, melodies. You gifted loved ones, bleeding heart wrapped in cotton, soaking in disdain. Your name, once music, now a toll bell ring, echoes dread and death for me. I glide down a chute of angst, a belly of a dragon I once fed. Scales carved sympathy pains into my chest and back, pregnant in your wake. Anticipation made fools of my eyes, poor in my speech, wise to none. Weak in your presence, shadow failed to follow me, hollow in my keep, lacking company, pale in comparison to current shades of me. In absence of you, craving broken shells, mosaic saints, stained glass angels, knelt at your altar, prayers on precipice's blade, sung hymns in your name. Sunken spirits live, below surface, splitting hairs, which I choose to pluck. Place a bliss upon my memory and inject a past life I've lived, where joyous rapture engulfed my spirit, took hold of my heart and head, and grief steals from me, time and time again, bearing new days with sorrow. New pain stains my veins, boils my blood with strains of grace. I accommodate. Again and again and again, I choose to love, inoculated.
I just want to say that I've seen you perform your poems loads, and I always have liked them. This is the best poem I've heard.
I've said the same thing. Remember when you read it to me once? I was like,
I think
this one.
This might be my favorite Metaphorest
Yeah,
one
you
now.
think?
Same here.
Wow, that means
Like,
a lot.
The thing is, it was tender, but it gave me that same heavy-heartedness that Tiffany's last one gave me.
Yeah.
Even though the subject matter isn't heavy-hearted, for some reason it just hit that way, but it's very tender.
You know, it's one of those. If you're into anime films, like it felt like one of those scenes where there's a character, there's a lot of heavy wind gushing across the character.
Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, but the voiceover is going on with a very like controlled and like sort of grounded kind of somber kind of feeling, and that's what it felt like. You know, it felt like you. I saw.
You're saying it's Beirut narrated by David Attenborough.
Sort of like I imagine sort of you sitting on sort of like a cliff, and like there's like a lot of like wind, but then inside you're so like centered, and that's the feeling that came through.
But
That's
it's exactly
so
it's exactly what I was talking about before. The way like a lot of sometimes poems is like there's a tell of like there's a sort of like I'm doing a poem, and at the end of it I'm giving you my wisdom and I'm wrapping up the story. But it had that exactly like that kind of like Yoda-like authority like all the way through, but without it being like I'm dropping mics here. It's like it's personal, but it's deep. And I think something for me that I really like is because you've got this really tight haiku form. It doesn't sound like it's a serious haiku. It sounds like a full poem.
If you hadn't told us that, I don't think we would have
got onto the.
At one point, I was trying to like track the haikus, and then at one point I went, no, they're gone, they're completely gone, and I love that.
Yeah, I gave up quickly.
The way that there was just, you did that thing like there were themes that ran all the way through. Like you didn't pick up themes and drop them. You hadn't, like there was Anubis, then there was different organs throughout. There was a surgical thing, there was a religious thing. There was stained glass and there was angels and there was hymns.
But it never felt disparate, did it?
No. Yeah, no, it just
like there was a through
all the
line.
way through. Yeah, I was
Such a beautiful poem.
So much
Very
like
nice.
again like that feeling of being zen in the face of storm. That's what.
Yeah.
Like, so good. I have a very weird question for you.
Yeah, go for it.
Do you like sleep with like your arms and like legs wide open? I will tell you why.
Please elucidate.
Do you?
I don't know. I've not.
It's a great
I've not been out of my body
It's
to
a
check
no
if I sleep. I just wake up in the whatever place I am.
Yeah, because I don't know. From all of your poems, you feel like the kind of person who's not like afraid to like feel, you know.
Yeah.
There's just no fear for feeling. You just let it come to you, and you just like drop it on paper like meteorites. And people who like not afraid to feel sleep like that.
Can you tell us more about, is this a story, is this a series of experiences? What's the story of the poem?
It's an amalgamation of like love that, or something that you thought was going somewhere that just stops for either some stupid reason, some dramatic. It's an amalgamation of, I guess, all attempts to love someone. Whether that be one person or a series of people. And I think when I came across this word, I kind of wanted to put everything that I've experienced from these failed attempts and just put it into one poem and just have some sort of closure, because it's funny because I'm always the first to provide closure if I end something, but it never goes the other way around.
I have so much respect for that. So much respect.
So I just kind of wanted something.
Good on you. I get it. Yeah. Fuck. Sorry. That was.
This one's landing.
That was a guttural reaction. Like as someone who's never had closure, to have somebody taking like the step to be like, I will give I value that a lot, and I feel for you that you haven't.
Yeah, it's mad. But I think because if you're a poet, you kind of are more in tune with like, I don't want this person to be left with this feeling. I want to resolve it for them. But then it never goes the other way around because they are not as in tune with, Yeah.
But I think it comes down to emotional intelligence.
Yeah,
It could be.
absolutely. I really loved the line "I harbour a lot." I don't know why that stuck with me, but I just think the phrasing of that is beautiful and just encompasses so much in one little simple. Just the word harbour, like I wouldn't ever have thought to have used that word, but that was one of the words that just made me go, "Oh, I'm here!" Like that really landed with me. I just think
I accommodate with like the partner of that one.
You also said grief has taken so much from me. Can you read that haiku again?
Grief. Okay, cool. I think that's near the end.
Yeah.
What a line.
Are we ready?
Erase your soul.
So glad I'm not sitting on a chair.
So it's like the third haiku from the end.
Yes.
And and grief steals from me time and time again, bearing new days with sorrow. That's the haiku.
The thing is, like, because normally something has, like, death has taken or life has taken or something has taken, and then I'll grieve. But this in this instance, it's grief that is doing the taking.
Yeah.
And
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
I liked my favourite one was also Cuts. Where is it? Something about like something's a dragon and it cuts. Like, I glide down a chute of angst, the belly of a dragon I once fed. So there's certain things that we do and we keep feeding these things that take us down, and that could be because of conditioning.
Yeah.
So there's, I mean, we sometimes we are our own unmaking, but sometimes some of it's just out of our control. But I recognize that in certain relationships, I could have done better, and outside of that, and also like grieving someone, you always take yourself in a cycle of like, you know, grief in terms of like you want to think about that person, you don't want to, but you want to, and like you want to play that song, you want to watch that movie, you want to do that thing that you did together, and that's not good for you, but also you want to do it and not do it at the same time. And also it's open to interpretation, but and you make it bigger.
Someday I'm gonna give you a call. I'm gonna ask you if I can use some of those lines in one of my that call is coming.
I'm stealing my heart a lot.
Yeah,
I'm going to the next one.
I think it, like, and I'm going to put this to Akko as like another one of your guys' many collabs, but like I saw this amazing project during lockdown where it was they asked people to send in haikus about just their version of the pandemic, and lots of people submitted the haikus and they read them on a voice note. Then they edited it and put it all together, but it's like hours of haikus, and you can just dip into the different ones, and then I hadn't really thought about it until you saw it, but that kind of, the fact that they are quite like a meditative sparse form, but then when you hear them all together they have that like feeling which really comes across.
I really like to champion haikus because I think I'm a big fan of, like, poems don't have to be long, they have to just last for as long as they need to last, and they don't have to fit any structure. Most of my poems just kind of
Hermione Granger.
when poems start going too long, I'm just like, I get this poem a day thing, right?
Yeah.
If I need to scroll, I'm not reading a poem. That's just it. Like that's.
Apart from if it's Ross Gay.
Oh come on, man. You know. Yeah. But there's something. First off, if you're having this poem in an exhibition, like you should I think it should go up in an exhibition. You can either just have a screen that just each haiku just comes up and nobody knows where it starts or it ends, or
that'd be cool.
you can have it like what do you call that? Is it pianola? The paper that you have in that just roll, and so you can see the haiku, you can see the rest of the paper, but you're focused on just the section that. But based on that, have you tried reading a poem from a random haiku and coming all round back to it?
I mean, I haven't tried, but I will try it when I have time.
To see if it, because it doesn't feel like, it feels like it would loop back.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
totally.
they could. Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, what we're saying to you, there's nothing you need to do that with that poem. Leave it untouched.
It's perfect.
Fire.
At some point there was like maybe 17 haiku, and then I showed Haroon, and then after I showed him I wrote another 3 or 4.
Yeah, look, I remember you called me up to tell me, oh, you have added to it. I was like, jeez. This was already like, I felt like just being like 15 rounds with like Clubber Lang and Rocky 3, like boom, boom,
What were the
boom.
4 new ones?
Because I think I probably
Did you put
oh yeah, did someone Google the Hormesis thing by the way?
Yeah, that was the thing that you said about the having that when you miss someone, obviously they use it in a medical context, but the toxic dosing.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. So it was just
Also
trying to
kind of
keep
like
it
that phrase.
Yeah.
So it was something that I love that idea, and I just wanted to write to it. And I think we are constantly writing poems in ourselves, in our head, unconsciously, and some it just takes a stimulus or some sort of trigger to kind of like have it just all come out, which I really love. This kind of all came out in one day when I shared it to Haroon, and it's something I didn't feel like I need to go back to. Like if I write on a day, I can revisit it in a day, but after that day is done, like the poem's done, and I go back to it.
Question about the process.
Yeah.
So when you were writing it, were you you writing it within the limitations of the haiku, or did the ideas come first?
Ideas came first, and then I kind of chopped it where I could to make it a haiku. And then there's a thing with that I do with haikus, where some words can just be changed. So like a word, if you can say it in one syllable, it doesn't need to be two.
Yeah.
So you just have to kind of like find word choices too. And then that in itself makes the poem more interesting because you'll use a word that you never usually use.
I mean, in the Christian hymns, they have it a lot of times where a word like over will be changed.
Over.
Exactly. They'll just put that apostrophe. I'm like, you guys are cheating. You're just cheating right there.
That's cool. Should I go to the next poem or is there any last question?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know we're running out of time. So this is actually a prompt from online. It's called Things That Outlive the Sun.
Things that what?
Things That Outlive the Sun.
Well, you've got my attention.
Exactly.
It comes from a poem by Sean Marie, who's also a poet on Instagram. So shout out to her. And Odd Socks did a poem on this, which is also really cool, about the moon. And then obviously I wrote this piece, but it's quite short. Your kisses that tattoo my skin, marks on me like invisible ink. Ideas that run off ledges, leaping off pages without preface. Your name I keep in the pocket of my tongue. I recite in sleep and in the morning come. The song you sang in the beginning month, lifting gentle hopes from sunken hugs. The gaze you held that told me once. In memories now, a portrait hung. Ways you chase demons close, running without a safety rope. Carving quotes, your tongue a saber, words befitting any occasion. Tapered breath during noonlit sleeps, caress my nape, warming me. The tapestry of your skin upon touch, that whispers of past life confessions. Glimpses of charm in your shades, disarm me in memories today. In your voice's absence, not even in shadow, not on wall or in space, scent or in marrow. Lesser pigments and remnants of love, artifacts of things that outlive the sun.
Why you do this?
How did I completely forget what the title of the poem was? I just got so lost in
left
the
it.
ideas.
Yeah, I got engrossed.
So honestly, you said that last bit, I was like, shit!
I keep your name in the pocket of my
Oh.
tongue.
God, yeah, that.
So that's
That's it!
so that's actually a reference to a poem called My Navy, which is the love poem based on the love letters.
Are you doing My Navy?
Yeah, My Navy. Do you want to read? You want to hear My Navy? Yeah. So I like to link poems to other poems with like a line. So sleep in the pocket of my, your name in the pocket of my tongue comes from My Navy, which is the love letter piece, and I use it also in a piece called Crimson. It's not referencing the same woman, but it just the resonance of
That's cool.
I love on that scale because we have footnotes of relationships in your book of life, but you also have chapters and volumes.
You know what?
Sorry, so
Like,
repeat that
you can't just say that and just slide by it like that.
Bringing Wahala.
Like, exactly.
Go again.
Sorry.
Wallet.
I don't even know how to say it again, but yeah, like
Yes, you do.
in your life, if it's a book or a trilogy or something, like there's some people or some relationships that are footnotes and some are chapters.
We have footnotes of relationships in the chapters of our life.
I would love to hear a poem that you write something from that. Please share it with
Oh God, it would be like 7
No
hours.
pressure.
Oh, no pressure.
me. Yeah, and I would love to hear what kind of voice you use for that because I know you could go in with the rawness.
Bitch, you're wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the
But
job.
how did you? So your list of objects. What did you leave out?
Leave out in terms of.
The list of things that outlive the sun.
I think for me, things that outlive the sun kind of reminded me of mortality, and I kind of just things that are temporary, which also last forever. So the idea of kisses are momentary, but they leave a mark on your mind or on your skin. They tattoo. So tattoo is a kind of a juxtaposition, and then just I like to kind of be, I don't know what the right word is, like whimsical or witty, like the idea of ideas that run off ledges. Like, I don't know what that means, but it is very...
It sounds cool.
Yeah, it sounds good, cool.
It makes sense.
Leaping off pages without preface, and prefaces are in books. So I kind of like that I like words, I like reading lines from poems that make my brain break. Like what the fuck did that mean? Like, it doesn't mean anything, or it does, but it's just too... I got my mind can't like wrap around it. So I like to do those kind of things in my poetry. And then the song you sang in the beginning month, I kind of I have like a lot of this just kind of came out of nowhere. I was just pulling thoughts of things that I think I don't know if it was the Rhino or it was the universe, but these things that I think were just really kind of cool, and then it became this thing that I imbued to a person. Like, yeah, so
I think, sorry, it does feel like you feel like you were pulling things, transient things from thin air.
Yeah.
But it feels like those are the real things that last beyond anything else. The things we consider concrete would, it's weird how they're not the ones that can last. There's that whole project in Finland,
The one about the nuclear waste.
The one about nuclear waste. They're trying to make a project. So the project is this: nuclear waste is going to take hundreds of years before it to deteriorate and become safe. They want to store it and leave instructions that tell future generations that do not enter this. And I don't want the next person in like 200 years to feel like Indiana Jones and start digging into nuclear waste, right? Yeah. And so how do you make something, thousands of years, how do you make something permanent enough that when our language has changed, humans have changed, they would still understand that this is dangerous? And that is humanity trying to make something concrete. But like you just said, ideas running off the ledge or kisses on the neck, like these things sound as transient as possible, but I think in 1,000 years they'll still be present.
So I don't want to say you're sick again, but it's like it's probably great how what as soon as you started your set, I don't know why, but I heard your name, and the name is always a huge part of our identity. And then it made me Google just to remember what meta means. And then like instantly what came up was the word beyond. And I feel like that's what you do so beautifully when you write a poem, is you write about beyond, you go into all these depths and you go beyond the surface and you take us to a whole different world. And yeah, that's something I really admire about what you do.
Everybody else loves here, you love here.
Yeah, it's all transcendental.
You love hard.
It's interesting because there's definitely a different side of you than I've seen.
Yeah, I think just when moving into the spoken word scene, it's always tricky to see what, because half of it is like I just want to express myself, but half of it is like I want to be. I initially kind of want to be seen, but then like there's certain poems that are kind of like popular and stuff, but it's taken me away, I'm not gonna lie, from my written work, which I think is better than
You're
the
so
stuff
seen
that-
here as well.
Thank you so much, I appreciate
it. Very much, it's really lovely to see. Because I'm not much of like, I find page poetry difficult sometimes, and it's just so nice to be able to get lost in something and to feel you as you've written it. And yeah, I think there is so much of a performative aspect to spoken word that this stuff does kind of get left behind, but this is the perfect space.
There's only room for certain types of things in poetry, and that means sometimes there's a whole bunch of things
there are so many,
that you can't bring them unless you're willing to.
Yeah, and there are so
some
many
people
talented
do.
poets that I know.
Mosh will sit down.
Mosh, I love Mosh. Mosh has some
reach out to
amazing
Mosh.
poetry.
Really?
He does, and like, yeah.
That voice.
Yeah.
He's got a poem called Worship, it's on my channel. It's an erotic poem. You'll love it. But it's the way
Remember when he was working through the pages?
Yeah, so he couldn't find the poem, and he was trying to find it through his note. It was like, sorry, there's a lot of fingering going on.
He just kept. And I was like,
That's your mind.
I was just like,
Only Mosh can pull that off.
No, only Mosh can bring that.
The same way that only Jody can pull certain things off when he does his thing.
Yeah.
The thing that you said about like leaving, like surrendering, like there actually like there's a documentary about Shawn Mendes, and one sentence that he says like just before going to the stage in his own town with like a crowd of like full of people, it was time to surrender. And like it was one of the most beautiful sentences, like the context and everything, it was amazing. And it was like kind of like
I think surrender is a nice word. I think surrendering always comes up with a negative connotation.
Yeah, exactly. Always.
But there's a power in itself to just surrender yourself to either the moment.
Exactly, because you decide to lose control. Yeah. So it's like almost like a conscious action. Like it's a paradox. It's
what I meant by sleeping.
I'll see that. I just got to see. My head is triangle, so I got to see that. If I see that, I'll fall asleep.
I think about it as like letting yourself sink into something.
Exactly.
Because I think of surrender as like, I feel it very physically when I think about it. I think about, something we learned in drama school, funny enough, was surrendering to like the earth when you're thinking about tension release, and it's feeling your weight in the earth, and you have to surrender every single bit of tension in your body.
And it's an active thing.
And it is an active thing. So I see it as sinking into something or like losing myself in something, and it's such a calming, beautiful thing when you can do it.
But I think that's also a bit with stuff about love poetry. So I think the first time I came to BYOB, Akka said, "Oh yeah, me and Bill organised this thing, and you should come along." And literally, it was straight up erotica. You from there to the beginning. I was like, okay. So it was like, it was very good poetry, but I wasn't prepared. But I think part of the reason why I think like love poetry is like a sort of a danger zone, but relates a bit to this idea of surrendering and like authenticity in poetry is because I think it can be so easily cliche, but if you like just go into it with the kind of emotions and you go to that next level in the way that like it's sort of you have to be confident to do that. And the other kind of sort of like spelunking, and you do that in your poetry, but the other thing that I think is really brave and I want to ask you about is your use of rhyme, because that's another thing that sort of in modern poetry is sort of a bit like tiptoed around, like whether it should rhyme or not. And all through that poem you had like these really beautiful half rhyme
I love
things going on. Yeah, me too. And yeah, like how do you, and obviously you've got your literature background and stuff, so like tell me about how you use rhyme, when you use rhyme, like what you like about rhyme and the half rhyme thing, kind of what do you have themes or approaches?
So when it comes to, I tell this to Nomadic because Nomadic was he always has like songs and stuff, and he rhymes. But I always tell him like I actually prefer poetry that doesn't rhyme. But there's also a thing that with half rhymes where I feel like it kind of, people are looking for like some sort of like metronome in a poem or some sort of meter. So I think a half rhyme is my way of kind of like compromising, and also it's kind of, I feel like this is also my style because my spoken word stuff usually is rhymey, but the thing is I think a rhyme reminds you that you're reading a poem, and I feel like I prefer prose where it feels like someone's talking to you. So for me to do a half rhyme, it kind of makes me kind of like do both at the same time. It gets you involved. There is a pulling there, but also it's not disruptive, like it's not obvious that it's a rhyme, it's very subtle, and I'm about, even just how I perform it, I'm very soft-spoken, I'm very subtle, I don't like to, I'm not really a loud poet or a loud writer, I just kind of write what I write and I don't make waves unless I write about a wave, but I mean, I've got a poem called My Love, which is about like, love being like, the person of affection is considered like as an island, and they are the sea, and it's very gentle. It's a gentle love that, and it's in the poem that it erodes over time. Like this love is not something that's quick and fast. It's gradual. So that's most of my love poetry is kind of centered around like just time being enduring. That's it.